Today we're going to dig into how one single company managed to become the logistical and distribution backbone for one of the most complex healthcare markets in the entire world. This is the story of PT Enseval Putra Mega Trading, or EPMT, and believe me, it's an incredible journey.
You know, to really get what makes Enseval tick, you've got to start with their mission. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's the engine behind everything they do to contribute to improving the quality of health. And this isn't just some corporate slogan on a wall, it's the mandate that shapes their entire operation.
And that leads us to the big question, right? Indonesia. We're talking about a massive archipelago, over 17,000 islands. Just getting anything, let alone life-saving medicine, from one end to the other is a monumental challenge. So how on earth did one company build the system that actually does it?
All right, to answer that, we've got to start by understanding the foundational role Enseval plays in the country's entire health system.
So, who is EPMT exactly? Well, they were founded way back in 1973, and they're a key part of the massive Kalbe Pharma Group. Over the decades, they've grown to become the single largest and most extensive distributor of pharmaceutical and healthcare products in the whole nation.
Now look, their size today didn't just happen by accident. It's the result of a very deliberate, decade-long strategy to build out a massive physical network.
If we jump in the time machine and go back to 2010, their scale was already pretty impressive. They had 65 branches that stretched from Banda Aceh on the far western tip of Sumatra all the way to Jaipur in the far east. That right there was the foundation they were building on.
And to put a number on it, check this out. Their net sales back then were already a staggering 9.7 trillion rupiah. This was no small operation. This was a giant just getting warmed up for its next big leap.
Fast forward just a few years to 2013, and the network had gotten way more sophisticated. It wasn't just about branches anymore. They had two enormous regional distribution centers, dozens of their own and subsidiary branches, and a whole web of over 100 strategic partners. This was a multi-layered, nationwide logistics machine.
But here's the thing. A physical network, no matter how big and beefy, has its limits. Enseval knew that to truly dominate and future-proof their business, they had to pivot, and pivot hard, toward a digitally integrated future.
And this transformation wasn't some overnight project. It was a strategic, decade-long journey. It kicked off in 2011 with a core system upgrade to Oracle. Then it moved into major automation for their warehouses, and it all culminated in creating a full digital supply chain ecosystem, including customer platforms like Emos and MostPay by 2020.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. They told us exactly why they were doing it. Way back in their 2012 report, they said that having relevant, timely, and complete data was imperative. They knew that in a market this competitive, data wasn't just helpful, it was the absolute key to survival and success.
So, as their logistics network got smarter and faster, Enseval started thinking bigger. They moved beyond just being a distributor and started to build an entire healthcare ecosystem.
By 2015, you could really see that shift in the numbers. Prescription medicines made up only about a quarter of their revenue. That shows just how aggressively they were diversifying. The biggest slice of the pie was now consumer products, followed by a mix of everything from over-the-counter drugs to raw materials and medical devices.
So how'd they pull this off? They built a whole family of specialized subsidiaries. They launched one for medical devices, another one for raw materials. They started their own chain of affordable clinics called Mitrasana, and even got into specialized care with providers for things like hemodialysis. You see, this wasn't just a supply chain anymore. It was an end-to-end health services network.
Okay, so that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Where is this massive integrated company headed next? What's the future roadmap?
Well, first let's just look at the results of that whole decade of transformation. Remember that 9.7 trillion rupiah figure from 2010? By 2020, their net sales had absolutely soared to 22.5 trillion. They more than doubled their business in 10 years. That's incredible.
So, how do you keep that kind of momentum going? You evolve your strategy. In the past, it was all about internal expansion, building their own branches, their own distribution centers. Now the focus has totally shifted to smart, strategic partnerships to bring in new capabilities and expand their global reach.
Just look at their recent moves. They've teamed up with the Indonesian logistics giant Samudera to create a total solution for healthcare products. They've also formed a joint venture with a firm in Shenzhen, China, to make their critical raw materials supply chain rock solid. This is a company playing on a global stage.
Which leaves us with one final, really big question. Enseval has built the physical network, the digital ecosystem, and the strategic partnerships. As they keep integrating all these pieces, how is their relentless drive for efficiency and reach going to reshape healthcare access for the 270 million people of Indonesia? That, right there, is the next chapter in their story.